So for all of us gardeners out there, and of course the ones with little ones, we have a wonderful opportunity to learn about gardening in Two Rivers Park in Nashville. Now, it's been under development for 18 months, but this fantastic nonprofit has come in and made a learning garden for all of us. Ginger Rose, it is a lovely day out here in the park, and you have such a wonderful organization that's taking care of it.
Thank you. Yes, our organization is called Enrichment. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. And we're focused on sustainability and specifically with applying permaculture practices to urban landscapes. So we partnered with the Parks Department of Nashville to get a land use permit here at this piece of the park that was really kind of underutilized. And then we've been able to come in and work on integrating food systems and increasing habitat, but definitely through the help of volunteers.
That is so wonderful because they can learn so much out here. For example, yes. You've got the pond that a lot of us has tried having,
yes.
But because of your sloping here, I just love what you've done.
Well, you know, I kind of bucked the system with this pond because all the research on the internet says, oh, you have to have a filter and you have to have a pump and you have to do this and that, but we committed to being off the grid, and that means no electricity. And so I started researching natural ponds and kind of reset my expectations of what a pond is supposed to look like. When you set out to create a natural pond like this, the first few years it's kind of murky looking, but eventually the plants in the system catch up and clean the water, and you have like a full ecosystem that comes out of that, which is much more beneficial. So knowing that, and knowing that it was going to rain a lot and rain was going to come off the road and our pond was going to overflow, we deliberately set it in at an angle facing downhill. So when it reaches a certain level, it overflows, and that allows us a great opportunity to teach students about water movement through a system, because they can physically see the water, the pond is too full, the water's running down through here, downhill towards the lake, and it kind of gets caught up in this system, which is another permaculture element referred to as a spring pond. This is meant to be a wetland habitat. It's a pond that fills in flash flooding and then will drain out within 24 to 48 hours completely. So it's there to slow the movement of water in flash flood kind of situations. And what that does for the rest of the system is it gives the other plants in the system, specifically things like the oak tree, it gives them more time to pull that water up out of the soil before it all runs down the hill. So it's been really beneficial. And last season, by the end of the first season with our spring pond, we had frogs and toads in it. So it works.
What a fun idea that so many of us could do. Now, you've also incorporated so many things in here. You have a kids' play area. Nature play is a big deal. You have the ferry trail where the kids can walk through. And I know in getting all of this together, you've dealt with more and more problems once again with water.
Yes.
You told me that you had a big problem with too much water building up in the sand area, which does not make for a good sand play area.
It's not for a healthy sand play area, no.
How'd you fix that?
Well, so I think it was a blessing in disguise. We had the sand area completely ready to go. We had already we had dug it, leveled it, put the manufactured sand base layer in it, and then before the sand could be delivered, it rained for like 2 weeks straight last year. And when we finally stopped raining, we came to check on the project, and this whole bottom end of the sand pit was up to the top with water.
Oh no.
So we ended up getting an excavator back out here, and we took up this entire pathway underneath, and we dug a massive French drain, maybe about 6 feet wide. So adding that French drain allowed us to create a secondary wetland area where we could focus on planting things like milkweed that would help bring in beneficial pollinators and allow children to have very up-close experiences with these kinds of wildlife just while they're going about their normal childhood activity of playing in the sandbox.
Well, you know, many gardeners have this kind of situation where we're on a hill, and in your case you also have driveway running through here, and I know there's a lot of pollutants that can come off that driveway and end up into your beautiful pond down here that the park has. So what are some of the things that you're doing to stop that problem?
So we designed our garden specifically to take advantage of the abundance of water that we have here by creating gardening systems that capture their own water. using hugelkultur to kind of slow the movement of water down, through adding features along the way that would help to absorb and slow water's progress, because, you know, as they say, you can't control water, but you can redirect it and you can manage it to some degree. And this is an opportunity where we can show that we don't need to irrigate this garden. We don't need to use city water. We can just make better usage of the water we already have.
So I see where you have this set up so people can make a great comparison here with this demonstration. So on the one hand, you have the hugelkultur garden, which is collecting the water for the plants. And on the other hand, you have our standard raised bed that people use.
Yes, and it absolutely is a demonstration of two major principles that we're trying to implement. One is water catchment and one is soil management. And so in this case, you can see that soil stays in place better on this side where water is being slowed down under the surface. But our typical raised bed terrace garden that we like to use because they're neat and tidy, the soil just runs right through it. You know, when we're prone to flash flooding here in Nashville, and in heavy rains, water is able to just basically carry your garden away. The hugelkultur system allows us to temporarily capture water that is moving off the roadway or moving under the soil from the upper system. It gets underneath these mounds. There is a trench that's about 4 to 5 feet deep that has a rock basin at the bottom, and then it was filled with logs and other organic material. What that does is it allows the water to be temporarily caught up, and then those organic materials sort of make a sponge, and they allow the plants more time to pull up the water. It was labor intensive to install, but it has given us great rewards. It's functioning beautifully, and I would certainly recommend that people consider something like this if they're thinking about gardening on a hillside.
And I see that you're doing something here that any gardener that lives near a waterway can do, which is to leave a no-mow zone.
Yes, absolutely. It's the idea of intentionally putting an area where you don't mow directly downhill from the place where you are creating the most soil disturbance in your landscape. And that's for the purpose of just having that extra buffer to make sure that soil particles don't end up in the waterway, because that is considered a high pollutant of the waterway and it affects the ecosystem in the water severely. So we want to be, again, mindful of our gardening practices and the fact that our activity in the city has an effect outside our backyard. If we can provide some space for wildlife to do its thing, then they will help keep the garden free of pests for us. And so they do our job for us.
Oh, that's a great idea. So anybody that's near any kind of waterway can implement something as simple as a no-mow barrier zone there. This is the most beautiful plant, and it almost looks like it's going to be, I don't know, a hibiscus or some kind of rose, but what is it really?
It's actually an heirloom red foliated cotton that we got from Baker Creek, Heirloom Seed Company, and it's a really fun project that we're doing with the kids where they get to see the full circle of fiber production, and we have a parent within our community who is going to help the students to harvest it, hand dye it, drop spin it, and then turn it into friendship bracelets so that they can see like the entire cycle of beginning to end fiber production.
And I see the flowers coming on, and then way down here, I see where the cotton bolls are starting to form. What an inspiring plant. And I know that next year you can't grow them in this place because cotton's hard on the land.
It is hard on the land, and then you also have to be really mindful of cotton boll weevils. That's a huge issue, and so you have to be very dedicated about managing pests and making sure that, you know, if you grow this as a hobby crop or something, that you use ethical practices in managing species that can harm big cotton production.
This is such a fun project, and I just feel like I could spend days and days and days out here, which I know is what everybody is going to want to do.
Yes.
So how are people going to be able to find you?
The best way to find us is to go to our website at growenrichment.org. We've put the specific GPS coordinates for how to get to our parking lot on the bottom of the website. And then they can also reach out to us through social media directly if they need more clarification. When we're directing people to the site, we typically tell them to set their GPS for the dog park and then go across the street, because we're literally right in between the dog park and Two Rivers Middle School. There's a little road that crosses the greenway, and if they just follow that road to the back, they'll find our parking lot, And from there, it's about a 3-minute walk to get to this part of the project site. And it's worth the walk because there's a lot to do here.
Well, it certainly is. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us and for sharing it with the whole community. And you know, next time you're coming out to a park and you're bringing the kiddos along especially, you know, come on out with your gardening senses and take a look at the beautiful Grow Enrichment project, wander through the woods, and get some inspiration for your own gardening.
For inspiring garden tours, growing tips, and garden projects, visit our website at volunteergardener.org or on YouTube at the Volunteer Gardener channel, and like us on Facebook.